at https://git-scm.com/doc. License to Arnold Graf arnoldgr@gmail.com. 18 Lesson 1 Configuring your environment. Figure 1.3 Installing Git from the Downloads page. Tip for a useful cheat sheet of Git commands. Visit https://education.github.com/git-cheat-sheet-education PDF. Heroku is a service you'll use to host your application online. To use Heroku, you need to create a new account at https:// Working with the Node.js REPL in Terminal 19. When the Heroku CLI is set up, you can use the Heroku keyword in Terminal. The last part of this setup process is logging into your Heroku account from Terminal. Enter Heroku login and then enter the email address and password you used to set up your Heroku account. You're prepared to deploy to Heroku. 1.4 Working with the Node.js REPL in Terminal. In this section, you begin using Node.js from Terminal through the Node.js REPL environment. The interactive Node.js shell is the Node.js version of Read Evaluate Print Loop, REPL. This shell is a space in which you can write pure JavaScript and evaluate your code in the terminal window in real time. Within the window, your written code is read and evaluated by Node.js, with results printed back to your console. Console. In this section, I look at a few things you can do in REPL. You've already used Terminal to check whether Node.js was installed correctly. Another way to see whether the installation was successful is to type Node and press the Enter key. This action places you in the interactive Node.js shell. You'll know that this command is successful when you see the terminal prompt change to. To exit this prompt, type .exit or press Ctrl+C twice. Several keywords specific to Node.js allow your terminal and REPL environment to understand when you're running a Node.js command. In Appendix A, I discuss keywords in Node.js and how they pertain to application development. Note if you need more practice with terminal commands, look at Part 2 of Learn Linux in a Month of Lunches by Stephen Avadia, Manning, 2016. You can get to REPL by entering the Node keyword in your terminal window without any text to follow. When you're prompted by, you can enter a command in JavaScript. Although this environment is reserved for testing and sandbox code, the Node shell can offer a lot of benefits in development. You can enter and evaluate simple mathematical expressions, for example, or you can execute full JavaScript statements. You can also store values in variables and instantiate objects from your own custom class here. See listing 1.2 for some example REPL interactions. In these code examples, I demonstrate some of the JavaScript ES6 syntax that appears throughout the book. In addition to the basic arithmetic I run in the REPL shell, I set up a variable with the let keyword. This keyword allows me to define a variable that's scoped to a code block. The blocks include function blocks, to which var-defined variables are scoped, as well as conditional blocks and loops. License to Arnold Graf, arnoldgr@gmail.com. 20 Lesson 1 Configuring Your Environment. I also use the new class syntax to define an object. The syntax here resembles that of object-oriented programming languages, but mainly acts as a wrapper over the existing JavaScript prototype structure. Listing 1.2 REPL command examples. Enter REPL. Perform basic commands and expressions. $node 3 plus 36 3/0 infinity. Console.log. Hello, universe. Hello, universe. Let name equals John Wexler. Console.log name. John Wexler, class goat. Eat. Food type. Console.log. I love eating $. Food type. Log messages to the console. Create ES6 classes and instantiate objects. Let Billy equals new goat. Billy.eat tin cans. I love eating tin cans. In the REPL environment, you have access to all the core modules that come with Node.js. Core modules are JavaScript files that come with your Node.js installation. I talk more about modules in Unit 1. You'll soon see in your own custom applications that you need to import some modules to use them in REPL. For a short list of commands to use in REPL, see Table 1.1. Table 1.1 REPL commands to remember. REPL command .break or .clear, .editor, .exit. Description exits a block within the REPL session, which is useful if you get stuck in a block of code, opens an internal editor for you to write multiple lines of code. Control-D saves and quits the editor, quits the REPL session. License to Arnold Graf, arnoldgr@gmail.com. Summary 21. Table 1.1 REPL commands to remember. Continued. REPL command .help. .load, .save. Description lists other commands and useful tips to help you feel comfortable with this interactive shell environment, followed by a local file name. Gives REPL access to that file's code, followed by a new file name of your choice. Saves your REPL session's code to a file. Explore REPL by running some JavaScript commands you know. In the next lesson, you learn how to import previously written code into REPL. Summary. In this lesson, you installed the Atom text editor and Node.js. You also verified that your Node.js environment is ready to evaluate JavaScript code by running some commands in REPL. In the next lesson, Lesson, you learn how to use Node.js and Terminal to build and launch an application. License to Arnold Groff, arnoldgr@gmail.com. 2. Lesson, running a Node.js application. In this lesson, you write and run your first JavaScript file with Node.js. At the end, I show you how to import JavaScript files into REPL so you can work with pre-written code. This lesson covers creating and saving a JavaScript file, running your JavaScript file with Node.js loading files into REPL. Consider this you're testing some code that you've written in JavaScript. Suppose that this code is the function shown in the following snippet, which accepts an array of numbers and prints them to the screen. Note in this code example, I use ES6 syntax to assign the variable print numbers to a function defined with a single ARR parameter and an arrow symbol in place of the traditional function keyword. I use another arrow function as the callback func tie-in within my for each call. 22. License to Arnold Groff, arnoldgr@gmail.com. Creating a JavaScript file. 23. Let print numbers equals ARR equals ARR for each. Number equals console.log number. Print array elements. To test whether this code works, you could save it in a.js file, link it to an .html web page, and run that file in a browser, viewing the results in your browser's inspector window. With Node.js, you get immediate satisfaction by running JavaScript files directly in terminal. 2.1 Creating a JavaScript file. To get started with your first Node.js application, create a JavaScript file to print a MES Sage to the terminal console. To do that, follow these steps. 1. Open your text editor to a new window. 2. Type the following code in that empty file. Console.log hello universe. 3. Save this file as hello.js on your desktop. That's all you need to do. You've created a JavaScript file that Node.js can execute. In the next section, you run that file. Strict mode in JavaScript, you can opt to write code in strict mode, a mode in which casual JavaScript mistakes are caught. Even when the Node.js engine or web browsers you use let those mistakes pass. To use strict mode, add use strict to the top of every JavaScript file you write before any other statements. For strict mode to work, all files in a related project must be tagged as using strict mode. See strict mode's documentation at https://developer mozilla.org/n-us/docs/web/javascript/reference/strict_mode. Note strict mode changes some previously accepted mistakes into errors, so they're discovered and promptly fixed. Some mistakes discovered by strict mode include accidentally creating global variables. You won't be able to create a variable without the var, let, or const keywords. License to Arnold Groff, arnoldgr@gmail.com. 24 Lesson 2 Running a Node.js application. Continued, assigning variables that can't be assigned. You can't use undefined as a variable name, for example, using non-unique function parameter names or property names in an object-lit array. You need to choose names that don't repeat within the same scope when assigning values. Note JavaScript has retained useStrict as a string for backward compatibility. Older JavaScript engines see it as a string and ignore it. JavaScript can be forgiving, but for learning purposes and in anticipation of the casual mistakes that most developers make, I use strict mode in my code and recommend that you do the same. Although I may not show use strict. In the book's code examples, this line is present at the top of every JavaScript file I write and run. 2.2 Running your JavaScript file with Node.js. The Node.js JavaScript engine can interpret your JavaScript code from the terminal when you navigate to the location of a JavaScript file and preface the file name with the Node keyword. Complete the following steps to run your JavaScript file. 1. Open a new terminal window. 2. Navigate to your desktop by entering cd/desktop. 3. Run your JavaScript file by entering the Node keyword followed by the file's name. You can also run the same command without the file's extension. Type note hello at the prompt, for example, for a file named hello.js, figure 2.1. Figure 2.1 running a JavaScript file with node.js. If your file was created and run correctly, you should see hello, universe, printed on the screen. If you don't see a response, make sure that hello.js has content in it and that your latest changes are saved. Also, make sure that you run the command from that file's directory. License to Arnold Graf, arnoldgr@gmail.com. Running individual JavaScript commands 25. Exactly what is happening here? The node.js console.log function allows you to output the result of any JavaScript command to the console window or your terminal's standard output window. If you've debugged JavaScript in your browser before, you'll notice the parallel between using console.log in a node.js console window and outputting to your debugging tool's console window. Tip: for more information about console.log and other logging types, please reference Appendix B. Quick check 2.1. If you have a file called hello.js, what will happen if you run node hello in terminal? 2.3. Running individual JavaScript commands. Imagine that you're working on an application to send positive messages to your users. Before you fully incorporate your file of positive messages into the application, you want to test it in your node.js REPL. You create a.js file with your messages as an array by creating a JavaScript file called messages.js with the code from the following listing. Listing 2.1, declaring a JavaScript variable in messages.js. Let messages equals. A change of environment can be a good thing. You will make it, just run with the code. List an array of messages. Instead of executing this file with node.js, which currently wouldn't offer anything, you initiate the REPL environment with the node keyword and import this file by using .loadMessages.js, as shown in listing 2.2. By importing the file, you give REPL access to the contents of that file. After the file is imported, the window responds with the file's contents. You also have access to the messages variable in your REPL environment. QC 2.1 answer: because node.js is primed for executing JavaScript code. It doesn't require add-ing the .js file extension when running files. You could run a file as node hello.js or node hello. Either will work. License to Arnold Graf, arnoldgr@gmail.com. 26. Lesson 2, running a node.js application. Note: make sure that you start your REPL session from the same directory in which you save the messages.js file. Otherwise, you'll need to import the absolute path of the file instead of its relative path. The absolute path to a file is its location on your computer. Start ing from your root directory. On my computer, for example, /usr/local/bin/node is the absolute path to my installation of node.js. The relative path from the local directory would be /bin/node. Listing 2.2, loading a JavaScript file into REPL. .loadMessages.js, use strict. Let messages equals. A change of environment can be a good thing. You will make it, just run with the code. Loading an array with 3 strings. You plan to list each of the messages to your users through your node.js application. To test this list, loop through the array and broadcast each message by entering the code from the next listing directly in the REPL window. Listing 2.3, use of file's contents in REPL. Messages.forEach. Message equals console.log message. Log each message by using a single line arrow function. The messages print in their array order in the terminal window, as shown in the follow ing listing. Listing 2.4, results from the console.log loop. A change of environment can be a good thing. You will make it. Just run with the code. Undefined, printing messages and showing undefined as the return value. License to Arnold Graf, arnoldgr@gmail.com. Summary 27. If you're happy with the code you wrote in the REPL window, You can save the code to a file called positivemessages.js by typing .savepositivemessages.js in REPL. Doing so saves you the trouble of retyping any work that you produce in the REPL environment.